Hi everyone and welcome back to Creator in Conversation. So TASQ Art, Talent Academy Sequential Art, TASQ Art. We opened our doors back in February 2024 and just last February we celebrated 1 year. But between the period of February to May, we were doing a lot of R&D and building up and setting for a schedule of masterclasses. Our very first masterclass, in which we had attendees actually step in and join us at the Edge Dublin, where our campus is located. Our very first masterclass was with Mr. Todd Stashwick. Now, you may know Todd Stashwick from his role as Captain Shaw in Star Trek Picard Season 3. You may know him from his performance in 12 Monkeys. Or you may be a passionate D&D player and have followed some of his streams online as well, or supported his Kickstarters. And he's also currently, at the time of recording, in the process of filming a very exciting new project as well. So Todd was the perfect choice for the very first masterclass that we were going to launch at Talent Academy Sequential Art. Why was this? Well, Todd's not only an actor, but he's also a writer. And he's not just a writer, he's a writer for games, for comics. So he fully understood and embraced the true nature of what is meant by sequential art. So what you're about to hear is a recording, an audio recording taken from this masterclass. It was recorded live before an audience at the Edge Dublin. You can actually go onto our YouTube page and watch the video for this particular episode, but we're re-releasing the audio component now for the podcast stream, and we're doing it now literally just 2 days out from the first anniversary of that talk as well. It happened on May the 4th in 2024, and of course I had the Star Trek guy come in on the Star Wars day. What we found out anyway, and you'll probably hear as well, that Todd actually does have experience with the Star Wars franchise as well. So it wasn't too off center. So this is a really engaging conversation. What I will point out though as well for audiences, what you're about to hear is literally the first hour or so of the masterclass. After this session, we concluded the recording, and Todd went on to do a one-on-one session over lunch with the attendees as well. So everyone got to sit around, ask questions, really delve into the craft. When we deliver a masterclass, we always like to reserve elements for the attendees, that exclusivity as well for those who attend in person. I am always a big proponent for sharing what we do with as big an audience as possible, but I do encourage you that if you enjoy what you hear, consider reaching out to us when our next masterclasses are coming up, because there will be a guaranteed opportunity for you. If it's someone who you really want to speak to, we'll guarantee you the one-on-one. At this stage, we've always been able to accommodate that, so you'll get a chance to really speak individually with that person. So far in the past, we've had Andrea Romano, who did a masterclass in person, and those who couldn't attend in person from around the world, including the Philippines and America, they joined in on Zoom. And we also had Kevin Easton, who did his masterclass entirely on Zoom as well. But everyone who had a question wanted to ask, Kevin allocated time as well. So just keep that in mind as well as you listen to this particular episode. And if you would like to know more about the Academy, about the masterclasses, and we're not long now until September. I know we're going into the summer at the point of this episode releases, but trust me, it will go by fast. But we'll be re-enrolling soon for a new academic year at Talent Academy Sequential Art. So if you would like to know more about what we do, hear more about these type of classes and master classes, do reach out. So I hand over now to Mr. Todd Stashwick. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
This is wild, huh? Look at us. I feel like we're in a star chamber, and we're going to make decisions that'll affect global politics. In a sense, I mean,
it's the tablecloth that adds to it.
It is. It's TARDIS blue. It's TARDIS blue. I'm going to crack my water in case I get parched. What's your name? Chris.
James. John.
We've met John. Yeah, we've played D&D. Nice to see you.
Dirk, Trish, Victoria, Tina, Stephen.
And I'm Todd. Hi. I know, I just splooched. That's a horrible word. I even took notes, but I'm going to take my glasses off, I think. I don't need to stun you with all my beauty. I'll break it up with glasses. I played D&D with you as well. Yes, good to see everybody. So today we're here. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to welcome everyone coming along today. And literally, I am just the guy in the chair for this. You're the main pilot, I suppose, for today's events. And we're going to talk about what's the process goes into your process in particular towards storytelling and writing. So you walk so many different paths from the point of view of writing for games, TV, comics. Yeah. Then you bring them all alive as an actor on the screen as well. So
this is true.
How do you do it? What's the secret?
How do I do it?
The secret?
Well, if I tell you all the secrets, then I'll be out of a job. No, so I'm probably gonna jump around a bit, for that is how my mind works. But it all sort of weaves together in one kind of harmonious idea that is the inside of my mind. But first, I want to paraphrase, and others have heard me talk about this. There's a philosopher whose name is Alan Watts, and Alan talks about. He says, and I will be butchering this quote. He says. Existence, the physical universe, is essentially playful. There's no other reason for it. So there's a much longer quote, which he goes on to talk about how life is not a journey, it's more of a dance. A journey is to complete, right? You're heading towards a destination, but we, as human beings, are more about existing in the moment while the music is playing, right? So it's more like a piece of music. Composers don't write a piece of music to finish it. They write it to be in it while it's happening. And so that guides much of my personal ethos to existence, that existence is a celebration of consciousness, right? And how we choose to celebrate consciousness, which is essentially what play is. We work, we toil, we go to the jobs that we may or may not like, we clothe ourselves, we house ourselves, we feed ourselves so that we can play. So it's not like we play so we can work. We work so we can play, because play is the meaning of life. It truly is. It is. And so whatever that means to you personally, whether that's I like fly fishing or rock climbing or baking cakes, or I just had cake. My friend Chris, from a college friend, she lives in Dublin now, and she has a company called Takes the Cake. She often appears on AM Dublin, or whatever it is, Virgin One. But I had some of her cake this morning, so I'm a little jacked on sugar. But however that play chooses to express itself is an individual thing. Now, for me, play expresses itself in many ways. Whether I'm fortunate that my career involves play, acting, my career involves writing, and also and things that I enjoy. I play games. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I play video games. I play board games. But I also hike and bike and surf and travel, and this is how I sort of celebrate my existence. What does this all mean? Well, I'm going to wind us back to 1974, when on a Christmas morning I opened up a box, and in that box was 3 action figures by a company called Mego. I was a 6-year-old Todd Stashwick in the city of Chicago, and those 3 action figures were Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. This is when I learned I was a nerd. my older cousin, Tori, may he rest in peace, bought me these 3 action figures and the Enterprise playset. And so I was a 6-year-old boy diving hard into imagined worlds as a boy, loving speculative fiction. I don't think we called it that then. I think we called it sci-fi. And adventure. Planet of the Apes was a big deal to me as a kid. I played those. I played them. I made stories with them and posed them and looked at their costumes and dug into the brave new worlds, the strange new worlds. And that really, I spent a lot of my time as a child, just dancing in my imagination. Then in 1977, and today is an apropos day for this is May the 4th, and may the 4th be with you. I like your Rebel Scum t-shirt. That thunderclap that was Star Wars hit. 77 was a crucial year for me. Dungeons and Dragons is probably when I first got introduced to it. Star Wars, the Rankin and Bass Hobbit, the band Styx was a big deal to me. Blew my little mind when I heard the lyric. He thought that they were angels, but much to my surprise, we climbed aboard our starship and headed for the skies. Like, what? You thought they were? So the story of like people on seafaring vessels communing with angels, but they weren't. They were spacemen. What? And it blew my little mind. So all of that really informed who I was as a child. And then inadvertently, not realizing that underneath it, I was learning what the hero's journey was. It was being presented to me on a continual process, being laid out subliminally when you watch Star Wars. I mean, you're basically watching Joseph Campbell 101. So playing Star Wars, then around 1979, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons. That lasted for about 4 years until a lovely thing called the Satanic Panic hit in the States. I don't know if it hit over here as well, but it caused a lot of us impressionable, imaginative youth to take our books and cast them into the sea. No, I probably sold them in a garage sale. But the idea of role-playing with my friends and creating collective story with my friends, was just, again, being infused to my is, right? I didn't realize it, but I was learning storytelling. And what is storytelling if not empathy machines, right? We walk in others' shoes. When we read story, we're walking in somebody else's shoes and experiencing life through their eyes, which I do believe will save the world eventually, if we can finally get over our idiocies. But story is that route into empathy and to seeing our world, whether we're imagining ourselves a farm boy from Tatooine blowing up the Death Star, or whether I'm just going to keep coming back to Star Wars references, by the way, or whether we are, playing Dungeons and Dragons with our friends and literally finding the story evolve in front of us as we are going. All of these things. Meanwhile, I was also, I wasn't an athletic kid. I was a little nerd boy in the suburbs of Chicago, being spoon-fed Spielberg and Lucas. And if you watch Stranger Things, it was essentially a documentary with Les Demogorgons. Like, you watch the basement scenes of them playing D&D, that was me. Like listening to Zeppelin and listening to Styx and rolling dice and watching Rankin and Bass Hobbit and watching Bakshi's Lord of the Rings and Wizards and Dragon Slayer and Legend and all of that. That basically formed. So much has changed. That basically has formed the kind of the pillars of who I am, creatively speaking, as well as the ethos. All the while also watching Star Trek, Next Generation, watching Wrath of Khan. I mean, I was being fed a very steady diet of story, not realizing that all along the way I was writing. Didn't know it. But when you're creating a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, even if you're 11, you're writing. When you're out in the fields with your friends with fake crossbows, actually kind of role-playing or pretending to be Han Solo in the basement of your friend Matt Lunak's house, you're writing and you don't realize it. But these structures are slowly being built. Cut to, so then I thought I was going to be a cartoonist. I thought I was going to draw cartoon strips and animate. But it was too quiet. And I didn't like getting notes on my drawing because I'm like, screw you, that's the inside of my head. You can't tell me I'm doing it wrong. Naive Stashwick going, no, we're trying to help you do it better. Yeah, shut up, that's the inside of my head, don't give me notes on it. But I did not mind, and I loved acting and performing from the time that I was, pretending to be Elvis with a broom and as a guitar for my mama with dippity-do in my hair, or putting on Muppet shows in my garage and inviting the neighborhood kids when we set up chairs, and I would put on the Muppet movie soundtrack. Why are there so many songs? And like literally with my Kermit puppet and reenacting the Muppet movie, I was already a performer as a young boy. So I was doing it. I was already doing it and then high school hit, and there was like, I could do acting or I could do art. And so I'm like, well, I'll keep the art as my own little personal private hobby as I was drawing all my Star Wars and D&D stuff. And then getting on stage in high school and doing theater, which I loved, and you could meet girls. And actually theater led me to meet my wife and the mom of my children. So it works. Plan and action. So then high school, did theater, did well in theater, went to university, Illinois State University. I got my degree in theater, which surprisingly paid off. And then immediately, because all while I was watching Star Wars and all of that fantasy, action, adventure, science fiction, I was also a huge comedy nerd. Saturday Night Live. I just wanted to be Bill Murray. That's all I wanted to be. I wanted to be a Ghostbuster, which was such a marriage of science fiction, horror, and comedy. And like, if you watch my work, you'll go, yep, there he's being Han Solo, there he's being Bill Murray, there he's being Han Solo, there he's being just a shameless thief. We stand on the shoulders of our influences. So I went and I was like, okay, how did Bill Murray get to where he is? Well, he did it via Second City, Chicago. Okay, great. I'll go learn how to be an improviser so I can get hired to Second City. So I moved to Chicago after college. I graduated college in 1990. And then I immediately moved into the city and started studying improvisation. With a man named Del Close and also a bunch of teachers, Don DiPolo, Norm Hawley, Mick Napier in Chicago. And I was learning improvisation as a skill. If there's one skill that I could tell you to go and try and acquire, is the art of improvisation. And now there's a great book called Free Play by Stephen Nachmanovich. He's a violinist, so his improvisation comes from a musical background, but the tenets still apply. It's a great book. There's also a great book called Impro by Keith Johnstone. Two great books. But all that being said, you're not going to learn how to improvise from reading a book. You got to get on your feet and do it. So if there's an improv class somewhere in your area, take it as a writer. Take it as a writer, because if you're not working with a partner, you're also improvising in your head, and you're saying yes to ideas in your head as a writer. Great. See how I told you I'm going to jump around? It all comes together. Second City. So now I'm in Second City, Chicago. This is 1990. I'm studying. I'm performing at a place called Improv Olympic, and I'm on stage many times a week. I now have my degree in theater. And so I studied voice and movement and stage combat and text analysis. And again, text analysis, you're learning structure, especially with plays, the 3-act structure. And in Second City, I was touring the country and then the world. Not the world, but I came to Edinburgh Fringe Festival in '95, which I met a company called The Rejects Revenge, which were a comedy theater company out of Liverpool. A relationship began there, a sort of a cross-pollination where I was doing improv, they were doing devised work. I wanted my improvised work to look like their devised work, and then they wanted to learn how to improvise. So I stole from them, they stole from us. I came to Liverpool, I directed a show here in 2007, maybe-ish, yeah, no, maybe. It's all a finger painting after a certain year. But so Second City really opened up a lot of doors, building confidence, building connections, building relationships, and all the while writing. Whether I knew it or not, I was on stage writing, creating structures in my head, writing. Notice I keep coming back to that word, structure. It's the difference between talent and skill. Ideas are great. Unstructured ideas are what our brains are puking out constantly. Structure is what turns it into story. Structure is what turns it into, it's like we say, talent is awesome. Skill is what you want. Skill is being able to do it over and over again. Talent you're born with and you hone and whatnot. And it's just sort of that kind of gift from the universe. But if you can't do it on cue, you're not going to get paid. So that's skill. Skill is that which can be repeated, and you want skills. And so that's what the difference between story and structure, or ideas and structure, is the difference between talent and skill. There's a lot of untalented people that can be very skilled and still get paid. Like they're able to, if they can put it into structures, we could free write all we want, but you've always heard the phrase, writing is rewriting, right? So, like I told you, it's gonna jump around. I was diagnosed officially with ADHD. You're welcome to today. You're gonna have front row seats to my ADHD.
Okay, I'm here with mine too.
Yeah, welcome. We're like squirrel. So
You were like jumping back and forth.
you're like, I know this man. I feel seen. So doing Second City, I am now a professional actor. I'm being paid to go across the country and do comedy, pointing my arrow towards Saturday Night Live, and hoping that that's going to be a thing for me. I was up for it. I auditioned for it. I went to 30 Rock and stood on the stage where the host does his monologue, and I did not get it, but it moved me to New York and told me, time to fish in a bigger pond, And one of the questions that was like, what do you consider your big breaks? I'm like, well, I quote Walter Matthau, who's a famous American actor. He says, all every actor needs is 50 big breaks. Because that's the reality. Anytime you think somebody has an overnight success, what you didn't see is all the small plateaus that they reached until they got there, right? And so I stayed on that track. That I started to book television commercials, started booking the Law and Orders, because that's what you do if you're a New York actor, is you do Law and Order, all of them. And I did all of them, some of them twice, with different characters, because, people forget. There's only so many actors in New York, and that show's been going on forever, so they have to reuse people. So now now I moved to Los Angeles, booking television comedy pilots. But one turning point moment, and I didn't realize it at the time, is one of my earliest jobs was on the show Angel, which was a spinoff of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And that suddenly pushed me into genre television. I didn't realize it, right? I think the fact that, again, I'm 6'2", I've got dark circles around my eyes and the voice of a garbage truck, lent itself to playing villains. Even though, like, I've literally never punched anybody in the face. I have elbowed Jensen Ackles. That was an accident. And so I started getting deeper into genre television, which, you know, Dark Angel, Buffy, Supernatural, the Teen Wolf revolution. Like, I just started doing more and more and more. I'm fast forwarding. I will also back up in a bit. Then something happened. I'm trucking along. All the while, you know, I had an idea for screenplays, and so I would write them, and I had ideas for little things, and I would write them just without really much structure. Just kind of diving in, flipping open the laptop, and I'm writing. Interior house. John says this. Well, that's gonna, it's just gonna go and go and go and go and go. I didn't have a process. I didn't have an approach. If you have an approach and a process, it's like drawing a map drawing a route on a map. If I do this, then to get to this place, to get this place. If I just sat down in the Wild West and just opened up my laptop and wrote interior John's apartment and just started typing things John says, because I have a wild hair of an idea, it's going to take 10 times as long to figure out what it is that you're trying to do and say. But I was doing it. I was trying. I was listening to McKee's story on tape, which was great. Oh, okay, well, there's some structure. That helped. Then, 2007, curious thing occurred. And that curious thing was I was on a television show with Eddie, now Susie Izzard, and Minnie Driver, called The Riches. I was the villain of that show. It was a very, really well-written show. I played a Alabama traveler, head of a clan. Minnie was my cousin. I was the villain. They had stolen somebody else's life. They had come across a couple that had got killed in a car accident. They stole their keys, and they moved themselves into their house and pretended to be those rich people. And then I was kind of hunting them down. Really cool show. I was about to have my second child. My first child was born in New York. So now 10 years later, I was about to have my second child with the same woman. And we were like, we need a bigger space. Let's move in. We'll borrow against the townhouse. We'll put the townhouse on the market. We'll move into this lovely house in Laurel Canyon. And we will lead this glorious life in Laurel Canyon. Then the writer's strike hit in 2008. And then the real estate market crashed. The economy crashed in 2008. Shush. Shush it, I say. Shush to you. So now I'm carrying 2 mortgages. We are now a family of 4. And the industry has shut down. We had to short sell this house. We had to move ourselves back into the townhouse. We're now a family of 4. We were a family of 3 when we moved out. So we're a bigger family in a smaller space, and we're moving back. And then we got a black eye financially because of having to sell the house. Why do I tell you all this? Because the lesson that I learned from that moment was, okay, this is a writer's strike. but they're striking against the producers. And the producers own the IP. They own the intellectual property. I have to create something that I own. I have to make something from my wee little nerd brain that I own and that I could sell. I need to diversify my income streams. So it literally came out of like back against the wall. What can I do? I got to write something. I got to create something. That was the big takeaway was, oddly, in the middle of a writer's strike, I got to start writing. And so I was working on a show called Heroes. And I played the multiplying man. So there was 5 of me, which made me always think that all of the other actors were like, oh, great, Todd's working today, which means 5 extra setups, because they would take my dialogue and spread it out over 5 different locations. So they would have to keep picking the camera up and moving it around as I was speaking in one voice, but from 5 different spots in the room. They were still kind, and I still have friends from that job. But one of the big friends that I made from that job was a man named Dennis Calero. Dennis was drawing the he was drawing the Heroes comic online, based on my character. He was introducing my character to the show weeks before I was going to show up. So I went online and I saw myself drawn as a comic. Now, I have literally a Joker and a Batman tattoo on my head. I am a comic book nerd. One of my major steady diet in the late 80s and 90s was reading The Sandman and reading Grant Morrison and reading Alan Moore. And so Neil Gaiman, was a patron saint of mine. So I'm a huge Batman fan, Frank Miller. These are major influences. So to see myself as a comic book, I'm like, dude, I found him on the then Twitter. I found Dennis, and I used my picture or his drawing of me as an avatar for Twitter. And I was like, hey, dude, it's so cool. Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey, I'm coming. He's like, I was a big fan of the Riches. Do you want to have coffee? I'll be in LA. I'm like, absolutely. So we sat down, we had coffee. He's like, do you write? I'm like, funny you should say that. Do you have any ideas? And he said, he asked me if I had any ideas. And I said, yeah. I have this idea of the devil quitting and going on the lam, like just quitting hell. Like the idea was evil is not a force, it's a choice. I'm weighing my options. He's like, I'm done. I'm done being the warden of hell. I just want to, and it wasn't even like Lucifer. It was more like the Hulk, original TV series. It was about a guy who's trying to keep the devil inside. He's trying to go straight. Kind of like there was sort of metaphors to drug abuse, where he had this thing in him that he was trying to keep down that was kept rearing its head. And if he didn't use his powers, he could stay off hell's radar. But there, like in the Hulk, there's just moments where he just can't keep it in, and he just devils out, and then the minions of hell can come for him and try to drag him back. And he's like, I love that. How about I draw that, you write it, and we'll put out 1 page a week. I'm like, I love this idea. So I started writing a weekly comic strip. I had not written a comic strip since I was a kid, dabbling and thinking I was going to be the next, Bloom County or Calvin and Hobbes or whatever, Garfield. I hadn't written a comic strip really, and so I had to learn a new art form. But it was in there. It was in there from all the stuff that I'd consumed through the years. They say if you want to learn how to play jazz, listen to jazz. I have been consuming story for so long that I'm like, oh, I kind of slightly understand this. And then I was like, okay, I'll take the lessons that I learned from listening to McKee about scenes need to go from a positive charge to a negative charge, if you know what I mean. Like, if things are up at the top of the scene, they are down by the end of the scene. Therefore, that's why the scene exists, because it has movement. So the beginning of the strip has to ask a question or answer a question, and the end of the frame has to ask another one, right? So that you're moving through the story. So positive to negative or negative to positive, there is movement. If it's negative to negative, it's not done. It's just a sequence. You know what I'm saying? The scene isn't finished. You have to ask yourself another question by the end of it. So that became this like drilling into me. How do I do? And then I realized, oh, I was doing this at Second City all the time. I was doing this in improvisation all the time. And when we're improvising, what you want a scene to start is with two people with different kinds of opinion, right? Doesn't mean they're in disagreement, but they could stand on two different sides of the issue. But by the end of the scene, there needs to be a transference of opinion. Whether it's he now thinks the way she was thinking and she's thinking the way he was thinking, or they come to an agreement, right? So as you're moving through and you're going, well, what is the content of this scene? Well, it needs to have a transformation within it, the turning point. So when I'm auditioning and I'm reading copy, I go, what's the turn in the scene? Why is this scene here? The scene is here is because it's giving us new information, whether that's emotional information, whether that's exposition, whether that's, intellectual content. There has to be a change in every scene. There's a turning point where the character from here thinks this way, this happens, now he thinks that way, and then we go forward. And so then you hit the next scene here, and then he goes, oh, okay, great. Well, what's the turning point? He starts the scene here, and then he thinks, and then he's here. So it keeps us moving through the story. Positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative. Happy at the beginning, scene, sad at the end. It's like, that's an oversimplification, but if you can clock your screenplay or whatever in that way, answer a question, ask a question. Answer that question. So if you're asking the question here, answer it here, ask another question. Great, answer it here, ask another question. And if you're writing a comic book, don't ever, if you want a big reveal, ask the question at the bottom of the page that you're about to turn. Because when you turn that page, they go, oh! So you're pulling the audience through the story, right? So I was getting trial by fire, learning how to write comics from having read comics. Nobody was teaching me comics. If they only opened a university or academy that taught how to. Anyway, someday a boy could dream. So now I'm writing this comic for free on my own dime, acting in TV and film, writing in comics, leveraging all of the nerd shows that I had been on already, so that I had an audience out there. Because of social media, I was able to go, read my comic. It's kind of like the things that you know me for, right? So we would take, Dennis and I would go to Artist Alley at San Diego Comic-Con with a postcard and a pitch, because we had one strip, 4 or 5 panels, one. And we had a promise. Every week, you're going to get a free next panel. Just all you have to do is click on our website. Maybe comment, whatever. You could just read it for free. Then, after a year, we had a book. We printed that book and brought that book back to Comic-Con and sold it. Got who do we get to write the first? Dana Gould, stand-up comics. We got Dana Gould, Amber Benson, and Doug Jones to write the forwards for all of our 3 volumes that we've printed. So after the first year, this is where it really starts to get, we start to go, oh, wow, I just made a thing and put it out there. That was the lesson. Throw the rock, let's see the ripples, right? Leveraging whatever I had, which was a reputation for being a nerd and a reputation for being on genre shows. And I had a really good artist that I was pairing with, and I understood the genre that I was writing in because I consumed it constantly. In fact, I watched more genre television and film than I watched comedies. But I just happened to like kind of have my master's in comedy because of improvisation and Second City. While all this is happening, I actually had an improv school in LA. I was teaching improv. I was performing in a show called The Doubtful Guests. I had done a show in New York called Burn Manhattan, constantly staying warm. You know, Will Smith has this great quote, I stay warm so I don't have to get warm. You know, just constantly be making stuff. So that my artist's heart was always satisfied. I wasn't depending on the phone ringing and going, hey, Todd, we have a job for you, to satisfy my artist's heart. I was making stuff on my own, so I didn't need them. And then eventually, they come calling. Do it for free, and they'll eventually pay you. So after a year, we printed this book. People were buying it. I was signing copies of it at Comic-Con, and Universal Cable Productions options it. Like, we're going to try to sell this as a TV series with you. Like, I love this story. We were actively pursuing that. You know, that's always in the background. It's like created IP and then sell it, make a bigger version of it. So we went around pitching Devil Inside as a TV show. The comic now is a TV show, and here's how it'll look, and here's who it'll be, and here's I'm acting in it. And a lot of people are like, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. We don't know how horror is going to play on television, because this was just before The Walking Dead had premiered, like literally the week. So they're like, and The Walking Dead suddenly kicked the door open for horror on TV. There really wasn't any before that. There was a lot of science fiction, Battlestar. There was a lot of science fiction, but there wasn't horror yet. And so they were like, this is a risk. And so we couldn't sell it. But we had what was called a blind script deal. Blind script deal is like going, if we can't sell this project, you come in, you pitch us a bunch of other ideas. We'll pick one, you go off and write the pilot for that, and we'll give you a big fat check. Like, I like big fat check. I have mouths to feed and mortgages to pay. Mortgage at this point, just one. And so we optioned it, so then we pitched the TV show. It was called Clandestine. And it was kind of like The Riches in Space, but I didn't realize it at the time. But it was about a family, a clan, the Clan Greaves, space travelers. They all, like 27 of them, that live in a ramshackle spaceship. They are pirates, they are con men, they are all of this. Suddenly become very much in trouble with the Empire, if you will. They come across what is essentially a derelict Starship Enterprise. No one's on it. And they're like, this is spooky. They're running for their lives. So they get on the ship, they shave off their beards, they put on the uniforms, and they pretend to be Starfleet, essentially. So now it's like, what if the pitch is, what if Han Solo had to pretend to be Picard? And that was the elevator pitch. And they're like, we kind of love that. So the Sci-Fi Channel bought it. We developed that for a year. We handed in our series Bible, our 60-page series Bible, and our 80-page pilot on a Friday. And Monday, the president of the Sci-Fi Channel and our development executive was fired. Oh, so a year and a half of my life. They paid me. Yeah, we're not developing any projects that were done. So the new guy that comes in, we're not developing any projects that are under the old regime. If there was already a pilot made, they would have considered it. So it was like, oh, okay, so that just went on a shelf, done and now because there was Valhalla was involved, and there were so many cooks involved by that point. After a year and a half, you go, well, I don't own it outright. It's not like I can just take it and take it to another company, because Universal has a stake in it. And we're not going to make it, but we produced it, so, or we helped develop it. So it's just like, it just is a bit of a mess. Two positive things that came out of that. One, instead of doing our show, they picked up another show they had developed called 12 Monkeys, which worked out well for me. And the other thing was, I now had this writing sample of a bought television pilot. All right. Cut to 2013. I was cast in to play the villain in Uncharted 4, the video game Uncharted 4, of which I didn't ultimately end up playing, but it forged a relationship with Amy Hennig, who was the creative director and the creator of Uncharted. After we both departed that project, she was hired by EA to take on a Star Wars title. She said, "Hey, Todd, why don't you come over and co-write this with me?" I'm like, "Hey, little Todd, we're going to go write Star Wars." What? Yeah, I will. I've never written a video game before. You see the pattern here? Here, write a television show. I don't know. Here, write a comic strip. I don't know. Here, write a video game. I don't know. I was lucky to, and I love being the dumbest guy in the room. I love it. Teach me. I'll catch up. I'm bright. I'll catch up. I have raw, but you help me turn it into skill. I have raw, help me turn it into skill. So trial by fire. I'm now working with Lucasfilm, and I'm working with EA, and I'm writing a Star Wars game for 3 years of my life. Going to Skywalker Ranch. Come in. No apologies. Did you bring food? Okay, good. Did you bring the quinoa salad? Okay, great. A big bottle of water? No. Is somebody's lunch? Nice. No apologies. What's your name? Good morning. Yeah. It's okay. So I went to the Skywalker Ranch, and I got to, not touch Han's blaster. And I got to, there was one great moment where they're like, "We're not allowed to touch anything, right? You're not allowed to touch anything." It's all on these shelves, like at a Home Depot or something. And it's all just there on big metal shelves. And there's Luke's lightsaber, and there's Obi-Wan's lightsaber, and there's Leia's Hutt Slayer outfit, and there's Chewbacca, and there's Indiana Jones' jacket, and there's Darth Vader's costume. I put on Indiana Jones' jacket. And there was still a pack of Marlboros in them. And then they give you these rubber gloves, and then you open up these big folders, and you take out the McQuarries, the original Ralph McQuarries, like the originals. And I'm like looking at this, and I had the Star Wars program in 1977 that had the McQuarrie painting on it of the X-Wing coming down the you guys have seen Star Wars, right? The X-Wing is coming down the trench, and there's a TIE fighter coming up behind, and I'm looking at this thing, and then, oh my God, like I'm getting verklempt, and I'm like, oh crap, I have to step away from the table so I don't weep on the McQuarries, because I'm going to smear them. Like, you can't touch the hard metal blaster, but here's a piece of paper with paint on it. Okay, this is awesome. I mean, it was awesome. So it was pretty special, right? Talking story at the big house on Skywalker Ranch, drinking Skywalker wine with Amy in 3 years, and then they canceled it. They canceled the game. We worked for 3 years on the game, and EA canceled it. You're like, okay. Right, you're seeing a pattern here, right? Yeah.
Was this 1813?
No, you're thinking of 1313, and no, it wasn't. It was after that. It's called Ragtag, or the code name was Ragtag. So 2017, I just finished 12 Monkeys, came home, bought a new house, and I was like, I'm coming back to write a video game. No, I guess I'm not. But then, within a month or two, I'm at a backyard party with my buddy Gavin, and Gavin is telling me, he's like, "Hey, Bobs," he directed a film called Warrior, a Tumbleweeds, and The Accountant, and The Way Back, and just a one, Jane Got a Gun, a lot of great stuff. I met him on a pilot, and he's like, "Hey." He's like, you're the comic book guy. I'm doing Suicide Squad 2. I'm writing and directing Suicide Squad 2. And so we just got to talking about it. He realized, he's like, oh, Todd's going to have some insight into this, because I'm a Gotham City boy. I love that part of DC Comics. Is my favorite world, is Batman and the Rogues Gallery. of villains. So he's like, what would you do with it? And so we sat down and had lunch, and I sort of wrote out all this stuff. I said, this is what I would do with the story of Suicide Squad 2. And he's like, he called up Warner Brothers. He called me up later. He's like, hey, why don't you help me break the story on this? You coming in? That's okay. Why don't you help me break the story on all of this? And I said, I'd be happy to. And then, after he'd been doing that, he's like, why don't you help me write the actual script? So those are two different processes. So when you see, and this I'm maybe telling you things you know, but I'm going to tell it anyway. When you see Raiders of the Lost Ark, story by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, screenplay by Larry Kasdan, much of the heavy lifting is done in the breaking of the story. That's the really hard part, actually, is breaking the story. Going, what is the beginning, middle, and an end of this thing? What are the big turns and high points, low turns, upturns, and downturns that pull us through? Remember what I was saying, positive, negative, upturn, downturn, that pull us through. In fact, the reason I think we love Raiders of the Lost Ark is not because he's a lantern-jawed hero. If you look at the structure of the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's the structure of the whole movie, by the way. But you meet this mysterious man in the shadows with the hat, the gun, and the whip. Boom, he's looking at pieces of a map, and he's cool. He's pulling back spider webs, and he's deftly making his way through. And then he gets the prize, and it turns into Chaplin. He's like, he's like running for his life, and the thing that he was claiming is stolen. We don't love Indiana Jones because he stands up. We love him because he gets knocked down and gets back up again slowly. That's why we love that character. And I think a lot of writers after that made the error of only focusing on the first part. Like, we like our heroes to be heroic at all times, heroes. But it's like, no, it's the Han Solo. It's not my fault that we love. This is where we see ourselves, and which is why we connect to them. We want to see them win in the end, but we connect to them because they mess up so spectacularly, and still there's that. Okay. Like that's why we love these kids. We want their knees buckle and they go to the ground. And then they still fix their hat and get up exhausted and keep going. This is why we love them. This is why these characters endure. Not because of what they achieve, but because of how they achieve it through adversity. Where was I? Right. So now I'm writing Suicide Squad 2. Time of my life. I'm driving onto the Warner Brothers lot. Every day I have a parking spot. The water tower with the wacko and yakko and stuff. They're in there. You hear them banging around. And it was a healing balm to the heavy gut punch. So I went from not getting to do Uncharted to not getting to do Star Wars, but doing it. Like the journey of it all is like, I did it. We did it all. And then I'm doing Suicide Squad 2, and we're having the time of life. We hand it, you see where this is going? We hand in our draft. They approve the outline. They love the direction. We hand in our draft. 2 weeks later, like, we haven't heard anything. We get a call. Yeah, we're having James Gunn do it instead. He's available because all the Marvel stuff. I love James Gunn. But they're having him replace us on the project. We don't even know if they read our draft because they're like, oh, and we're announcing it today. I'm like, well, if you're announcing it today, when did you make that? All right. Anyway, so here we are. But I got paid. Mortgage was paid, family was fed, health care, bang, bang, boom, 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 boom. And I learned a ton about writing on major IP, right? Like I wrote in Star Wars. Now I've written in DC and acted in DC and Gotham. So like I've been able to play in the playgrounds of the things that I grew up with, and ain't that grand? So none of it is a failure. Like I don't market any of it as a failure because I had these amazing experiences and I got to learn so much about story. How are we doing on time?
We're good, about
5 minutes. Boy, this is going fast. So cut to us not doing Suicide Squad 2. In the interim, I'm now doing just acting in television and film, and I wrote another video game called Forspoken that I got through Amy Hennig. And then Amy, after Star Wars went down, Amy opened her own company. We are now Skydance New Media, and I am now writing on a new Marvel game called 1943: Rise of Hydra. So I've been writing for Captain America and Black Panther now for the last couple of years. So I'm getting these wonderful education in genre writing, and I'm learning so much between comics, television, feature films, and video games. I've been paid to write in each one of these genres, not genres, mediums, and there is a lot of crossover, and so we could talk about that in the next section. But then something else glorious happened to me, which was I told you after the Satanic Panic, I quit D&D at like 13 or 14. But I came back. I was at because I was a kid who was like, the devil, oh no. And then I that all became hokum to me and just great mythology. And then 2012, I was at an audition and a man named Abraham Ben Ruby, big actor, he was on ER, tall, I mean, literally physically big, he's huge, big guy. We're on an audition, he's like, oh, I was up late playing D&D with Matthew Lillard. And I'm like, adults are playing Dungeons and Dragons? Wait, what? And he was like, yeah, a lot of us still play D&D. I'm like, what? And now, like, my kid, the child in me was like, I want to play D&D. So I just went back to eBay and I bought all my old books back. And now I'm like reading the Monster Manual, smelling the old like 1979 Trampier cover Player's Handbook. I'm just collecting them. Nobody to play with. Because Abraham and I worked close enough that he was going to invite me to the table, but I was intrigued. Now, cut to 2016. Like, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I had met my trainer for season 3 of 12 Monkeys. Like, I'm a DM. And so, and I put on Facebook, I'm like, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons. And my buddy Yuri Lowenthal, who's the voice of Peter Parker in the Spider-Man games, he's like, shows up at my house with the starter kit, hands it to me. Who here plays Dungeons and Dragons, by the way? Oh, we got a full deck. Okay, so I'm preaching to the choir. So he shows up at my house with the starter kit. He's like, we're gonna play D&D. I'm like, awesome. And then 12 Monkeys took me to Toronto for 3 years. So because of the training that I had, like literal physical training, I had to get into like prison yard shape for 12 Monkeys for season 3. And the guy that was training me was a DM. He's like, when you're done with 12 Monkeys, we will start a game, because he was a DM. I'm like, awesome. So I came back 2017, like this is all kind of happening around the time that Star Wars is ending, and Suicide Squad is happening, and all of this. I'm now back to the table playing Dungeons and Dragons. And then my daughter was like, what's that, Dad? I'm like, well, my child. And then I started running a game for her. I had to get back to DMing because I was only playing now. I'm like, I had to teach myself how to DM so that I can play for my daughter. And then she's like, I'll take it from here. Now she's a dungeon master. And I've been DMing now for 6 years, and now been writing in that space, just planning games. as well as I created a cocktail book with this man, Brendan Cleely, called Mystic Libations, which is a D&D inspired cocktail book. And then now, this is coming up at the end of May. We're doing a big Kickstarter project that I can talk more about after the break.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. As I mentioned in the intro, the video for this episode is already available on our YouTube page. It's in a separate stream. We're just re-releasing the audio for this for the anniversary of our first masterclass, and it's going out across all of our audio podcast streams. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, please consider liking and subscribing and sharing with friends, family, or any interested parties. Don't be afraid to leave us a comment. Feel free to reach out to us by email at info@tasqart.com. That's TASQART.com. Until next time, this has been a copyright production of Macaulay Consultancy 2025.